everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is Matt Taglia, Senior Director of Emerson College Polling. Matt, it's so nice for you to be joining me in person, in studio. I appreciate you coming in.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
I am excited to talk about some polls you have. Emerson College Polling, Pix 11 and The Hill have new polls on Jersey's gubernatorial race as well as New York City's mayoral race. And you and I are sitting in New Jersey right now, so why don't we start with that race? Last time we talked, it was a month ago, the end of September. The poll showed Democrat Representative Mikie Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli in a dead heat. What is the state of the race right now?
And Brittany, it's still very close. So right now we see that Sherrill has about a 1-point lead over Ciattarelli. So, I think that we could see this go either way. It is certainly within the margin of error. But right now we're giving a slight edge to Sherrill.
And why is that? What demographics are supporting each candidate? Break it down for us.
Yeah, I think the most striking difference here is with gender. So we see that men are supporting Ciattarelli at a higher rate and women are supporting Sherrill at a higher rate. Now, the big difference from our previous poll in September is that women have now broken for Sherrill, and they're breaking for Sherrill at a higher rate than men are for Ciattarelli. And so, I think that is certainly one of the things that's really making a difference here. We have a very, very small number of folks who are undecided at this point. And so, I think those demographics do point to a Sherrill win. But again, it could go either way. This is very close.
And let's talk about that shrinking undecided, because in September it was 11%. Now it's at 3%. It seems like that's helping Sherrill just a little bit. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah. Like I said, women have made up their minds more, it seems, and are breaking more for Sherrill. I don't know about the remaining undecided vote, and I think that this election is going to more come down to turnout. I think very small differences in turnout here could make a huge difference in the actual ballot and in the final margin.
And speaking of turnout, if I'm undecided right now, just a few days before Election Day, am I more likely to make up my mind one way or another, or am I deciding, hey, I'm going to sit on the couch, sit this one out?
That's a good question. I think that some folks probably will sit this out, but there's been a lot of attention paid to this race, and I think that folks do see that it is close. We have higher participation in early voting as well. So, I do anticipate that this will be a decent turnout. I don't think that too many folks are going to be sitting at home, sitting this one out.
And the Garden State's really interesting because it's had Republican governors, Democrat governors. It currently has a Democrat governor, has not voted for a Republican presidential candidate in years. But Governor Phil Murphy right now, he has a 34% approval rating. It slid 6 points since May. Trump's job approval in the state is 45%. I mean, what do you make of that? Does that indicate anything to you that Trump's approval rating in New Jersey right now is higher than the Democrat governor?
Yeah, that's a tough place to be for Democrats in the state. I think it's tough for Sherrill. I think that's the reason that this race is so close in the first place. I mean, we did see that in 2024, New Jersey was closer than it has been in the past at the presidential level. And I think that certainly makes it competitive at the gubernatorial level. But I think Governor Murphy's approval rating and Democrats generally in the state, that is really bringing down Sherrill. That's bringing down Democrats at the statewide level.
And you and I, in every conversation recently, somehow I bring up Governor Gavin Newsom of California, and we talk about how we've seen his approval rating in these Emerson College polls go up when he's really been this foil to President Trump. He's sued the Trump administration over tariffs, as well as the Trump administration deploying the National Guard. I mean, in New Jersey, it's across the country. California's bluer than New Jersey is. Do voters in New Jersey want to see a governor that works with the president or doesn't? Because not working with the president, being his foil, has proven successful for Gavin Newsom.
Right. And I think that voters in New Jersey, on the other hand, aren't quite as turned off by the governor working with the Trump administration. I think that that's why we do see Ciattarelli leaning more into his relationship with Trump, his backing of Trump, more so than he has in the past. And then, we look at the issues. In New Jersey, the top issue is the economy, as always, throughout most of these polls at the statewide level. And so both candidates have been focusing on that, at least to some extent. But yeah, I think this is definitely a different dynamic from California, say. This is certainly more of a purple state, maybe not fully purple, but blue leaning towards purple.
And I want to talk about those top issues facing voters. It's always the economy, as you and I have talked about for now over a year. But what are the other issues that are concerns for New Jerseyans?
Well, we found that, of course, as you said, the economy, housing affordability is a major issue for New Jerseyans. We see that as well in New York, but we also see that things like taxes, energy, those have been major issues in this New Jersey race. Folks, looking beyond just the economy and inflation, they're looking at their bills and they see these rising rates, and I think that has influenced the race, and I think we've seen some of that rhetoric come out of both campaigns.
And this is the first poll that Emerson's taken since multiple stories have rocked this race. It was reported that there was a cheating scandal at the Naval Academy in 1994, the year Sherrill graduated, and she didn't walk in graduation in connection to that scandal. She said she wasn't punished for cheating, but because she didn't tell on her classmates for cheating, she wasn't able to walk. CBS also reported that Sherrill's military records were released almost fully unredacted to one of Ciattarelli's allies. And this contained a lot of sensitive information, including things like her social security number. Is there any indication, based how close this race is, that news has swayed the race either way?
I don't think we've seen it sway the race too much, but I will say that if anything, I think that Sherrill has actually benefited here, or at least Ciattarelli has lost a bit of ground as a result of this. It seems like voters blame him more for this and don't necessarily see Sherrill's military record, the graduation scandal. They don't necessarily see it as a scandal because we see her support has increased. And as I said, especially among women, I think that there is a bit of that dynamic here of her being attacked by Ciattarelli and his allies.
And so now let's switch gears here. Let's talk about the race in the Big Apple. That was a local race. It seemed like months ago when you and I were talking about it, it was former Governor Andrew Cuomo's race to lose. Now that is certainly not the case, according to this latest poll. As we know, Zohran Mamdani, he's a New York State Assembly member. He won the Democratic primary in June, and that seemed to be a shock. Now he has a national profile. He's the Democrat candidate. We have former Governor Andrew Cuomo as the independent. We have the Republican Curtis Sliwa, who is the founder of the Guardian Angels. Something that happened since you and I talked was that incumbent mayor, Eric Adams, he dropped out of the race. He endorsed Cuomo, which really was a left turn, considering just a few weeks ago he called Cuomo a snake and a liar. As you and I sit here right now, just days before this race, what is the state of this race?
Well, the state of this race is that Mamdani is headed towards a victory. Right now, we have him at 50%. So, it doesn't matter electorally that he reaches a majority. If he wins a plurality, then he wins. But I do think that it's at least symbolic that he's reaching 50%. I think on Election Day, we will see it get very close to 50%, if not above. And meanwhile, Cuomo has stalled. He's at 25%. So that's a 25-point lead for Mamdani. I think the other sort of wrinkle here is that Sliwa has actually gained some traction. So he's gained about 10 points since our last poll, and he's hot on the heels of Cuomo at this point. So, yeah, I think we shouldn't see too many surprises on Election Day. There is a chance that Sliwa's vote maybe evaporates a little bit and that boosts Cuomo, but I think that we are certainly headed towards a Mamdani win.
I want to talk about these numbers because the differences from last month to this month, I think, should be broken down. Last month, Mamdani had 43%, Cuomo 28%, Sliwa 10%, Adams 7%. This month, Mamdani 50%, Cuomo 25%, Sliwa 21%, Undecided 5%. So which demos have you seen Mamdani and Sliwa pick up support, and in the reverse, where's Cuomo lost support?
Yeah, and here I think Cuomo has lost support across the board, just at very small margins. But where we really see something interesting is with the older voters. They are splitting their vote between Cuomo and Sliwa. But even so, there's a sizable chunk of those voters who are voting for Mamdani. And so I don't think it's inconceivable that Mamdani wins some of these oldest voters there. We expect him to win young voters. We see that in the crosstabs. We see that data there. We know that he's going to rack up really large margins with voters under the age of 40, under the age of 50 even. But those older voters are really interesting, and they could maybe not sway the final result of the election, but certainly the margin.
And I'm no math whiz here, so really correct me if I'm wrong, but Mamdani has 50%. So unless Cuomo keeps his 25%, takes Sliwa's 21%, then takes every single undecided 5%, he will win by 1%. I mean, it's now a three-way race, and the 5% are undecided. Does this undecided matter at all?
It probably does not matter at all. As you said, Curtis Sliwa dropping out today. Maybe Cuomo could gain, let's pretend that he gains all of those voters, the ones who haven't already voted, that is. So since there's already been early voting, we know that some of these ballots have been cast. So it's sort of a fantasy situation that Cuomo could rack up enough support here. It's just not going to happen, and those undecided voters at this point don't really matter.
And I bet no one, including probably former Governor Cuomo, could imagine this happening 5 years ago. I mean, at the time, he had a national profile. It seemed like he could be a really strong presidential contender. He was the face of COVID, and my, has that certainly come tumbling down for him. He has faced his own set of scandals he was heavily criticized over his handling of the nursing homes during the pandemic. He ultimately resigned in 2021 after he was hit with a flurry of sexual harassment allegations. Sliwa's a Republican in New York City, which, I mean, New York City hasn't seen a Republican mayor in years. Mamdani hasn't had a national profile ever until after winning this primary. I mean, this was Cuomo's race to lose months ago. What happened here? Is it just he's that unlikable? What do you make of this?
I think that is a part of this, yes. He has low favorability. People don't like his image necessarily. And I think that he really suffered a major blow coming out of the Democratic primary. As you said, we saw this meteoric rise of Mamdani. And I think that there is just a hesitancy to return to the sort of old guard, so to speak. I know that his campaign has been sporadic across the city. They are buying media, but that in-person sort of retail politics side, I don't think that's been happening quite like Mamdani, and you certainly see that reflected in the numbers, and you can see that enthusiasm gap there for sure. So yeah, it has been an incredible journey just watching these candidates and their respective rises and falls.
Do you think that this is an election that's coming down to issues or candidates? Because it's really fascinating. I think when you talk to voters in New York, you're either a Mamdani voter, or I think more so the Cuomo, Sliwa, and then formerly Adams voters are more interchangeable. I mean, that's really fascinating considering Sliwa is the Republican. What is this coming down to, the candidates or the issues?
That's a great question. I do think that the candidates really, really matter here, but the issues do as well. So we've seen Mamdani has really attached himself to affordability, whether it's housing, groceries, etc. Affordability is sort of his main point. Cuomo has done a bit of the same. Sliwa maybe a little bit less so. He's always sort of been on this crime ticket, so to speak. And we do see that New York voters rank the economy and housing affordability as top issues citywide. When you look at the national picture, so when you ask voters, what you think the most important issue is in the U.S., we see threats to democracy is their top issue. So, I think that there's also that element of, voting for Mamdani might be a vote against Trump, whereas you can't necessarily say that for Cuomo. We have seen him at odds with Trump previously, but that has not been the dynamic in this race. So I think that these candidates and the issues are so intertwined that it's even hard to separate it at this point.
And when you're looking at this race, as well as New Jersey's gubernatorial race, this is an off-year election. I mean, how much is that going to impact the race? Because I know you said that the New Jersey race will come down to turnout.
Yeah, and I think that it's especially important to look at turnout in New York because New Yorkers are not used to having a competitive general election. And so I don't know what turnout will look like on election day because this is sort of the first time in many years that New York City has had this sort of election. So based on the primary turnout, we would expect that it'll be pretty sizable and that there will be a significant youth component of the vote. But I know that we haven't necessarily seen that in the early voting data. So there are quite a few unknowns here. But that said, I don't think that it makes the race more competitive. I do think it will be interesting for future races, especially in New York City. But I do think in both cases, in New York City and in New Jersey, we're going to see record levels of voting and interest for an off-year election.
Well, there is certainly a lot to look out for in the next coming days. And Matt, I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you breaking down the numbers. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much, Brittany.